All right, guys, we're getting an even better look there at the Studley Pat Barr here as he's gone professional on us here with all the lighting. Look at him, like he's
Yeah.
Mr. Movie Star there now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, good to see you, bud. How you doing?
Good. How you doing?
Very good. We were just talking beforehand. I know you can't get into a whole lot of details, but just so all the viewers and listeners know, you had a good buddy of yours that was wounded over a few weeks ago, and he's in pretty tough shape. How much I know obviously we can't mention his name, but he was shot a number of times, right?
He was shot 9 times.
Yeah.
And he's in stable condition right now. It was touch and go there for a while, but they upgraded him yesterday to stable. But long road of recovery ahead. He got shot a couple times in the pelvis, I think.
Right.
Once in the chest. So like bad wounds. They say it's like they don't know how he lived through it.
Wow. It's funny too. Well, not funny. It's awful. I shouldn't say funny. But just to show you how the mindset of our buddy here, Pat, when it all happened, you texted me right away to let me know that we had a podcast the next day, and you just said to me, "Listen, I may not be in 100% on in the podcast because my buddy gets shot." And I said, "Listen, Pat, we don't have to do the podcast." And your first response was that your buddy would give you a hard time so much about missing the podcast because of him getting shot 9 times. Right? So it's kind of like, it shows the toughness level you guys admire that. So, all right. Well, it's kind of on that same subject, right? So he's obviously gone through something tough, really tough, that something most of us will never face in our life. But we're all going to face problems, or we're going to have things that we're trying to accomplish. And I think sometimes people have that, there's different ways of looking at it. People, if they're trying to accomplish a goal, there's the saying, well, people want to take the elevator to the top of the mountain instead of taking the stairs. Or if somebody's faced with some problem in their life, they want to fix it right away. And that's just not the way things go all the time. Right. And so it's the same thing with your buddy, I guess, right? That he's with Mike, that he's going through his stuff. But it seems like guys, so for you guys, it's almost like it's part of your training, whether it's intentional or not, that when something happens to you in life, instead of looking and say, "Oh, I got to make this big heroic move," it's just get up and do the next task in front of you. Is that totally. Is that part of your training, or is that something you've had inside you? Or
well, it's definitely, you have to develop it in training, I think. For example, when I first started Buds, if day one I looked at the 6 months of kind of torture that I had ahead of me, it would have been overwhelming, right? Like if you look too far out, instead of just at the task in front of you, it can get overwhelming, and you might self-defeat yourself. You know what I mean?
Right.
So the way I kind of dealt with that was I would break up the day into 3 separate sections.
Right.
I would wake up at breakfast. It would be like, all right, when I would wake up, it'd be like, get to breakfast. And then when I got to breakfast, it would be like, just get to lunch, and then just get to dinner. So for me, I think, if I was, getting surf tortured or running with a boat on my head, and I was thinking about log PT or something like that, it just wouldn't work. Like, you have to just focus on the task you've got at hand, and eventually you'll accomplish that. And obviously you've got that overall goal in the back of your head. But yeah, I think it's like just super important to just focus on what you've got right in front of you. Right. Put your head down. I think it's also important to have in those tough situations, you've got to develop a way to kind of have a defiant attitude, almost like a swagger. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's important, because if you don't, if you're just like, oh man, like we've got to do this now, it's not going to work out. You're not going to do as good a job as you wanted to. You're not going to complete that goal.
Yeah. It's funny. Like I love the way you said that. I've got a poster here, one of my favorite sayings, and it's fate whispered to the warrior, "You cannot withstand the storm." And the warrior whispered back, "I am the storm." That's one of my favorites. Like, to your point, it's like, instead of just saying, "Okay, I just got to get myself through this," it's more like, no, I'm going to attack it.
Yeah.
Right? It needs to worry about me. Right.
Yes. So in second phase, I've spoken a little bit about pool comp on here before,
right,
but it's this thing, just to recap a little bit. You've got scuba tanks on, you're at the bottom of a pool, and an instructor basically just beats you up, ties knots in your air hose, knocks your mask off, bounces your head off the bottom of the pool. and it's to simulate anything that'll go wrong, and they want to make sure that you're not going to panic.
Right.
If you find yourself in that situation. So it's this big, intimidating kind of a task. It's the second most important evolution in BUD/S next to Hell Week. And we had an officer, and you're sitting on the pool deck waiting to go, and you're nervous. We had an officer, and you start off in pool comp, you're on all fours crawling around, just waiting for the instructor above you to just come down and wreck your life, pretty much.
Right.
And this officer, he's crawling around on all fours, and he gets to a point where he can see the instructor in front of, or above him, and he just looks up and he gives him both fingers. That's how he started the evolution, and I thought that was awesome. Like, that got me jacked up when I saw that he did that.
Yeah.
And they loved it too. You want that defiant kind of, that tough guy, true grit kind of attitude.
Yeah, definitely. I love that. Reminds me of, like, I think I told a story to you on this before too. When I was so this goes way back to like 1978, and I was in college. I think it was like going into my senior year of college, and I got invited to try out for the Canadian Olympic team, and it was out in Calgary, Alberta. That was the year the U.S. won the big, the gold medal with Miracle and all that.
Yeah.
And we were staying, because they didn't have a whole lot of money, we were staying in a double wide construction trailer out in the parking lot of the arena where we had these tryouts in Calgary, Alberta. And so, being the brilliant young guy I was at that age, I decided it'd be a great idea with a couple of buddies to go out and have a few adult beverages.
Uh-huh.
So this is the first night we're there. We get back to the double wide construction trailer about 2 or 3 in the morning. And we now think it's going to be even more intelligent to now take all the furniture out of the TV room and put it on top of the trainer's car. So now, why this made sense to us, I don't know why. I don't even know if it made sense, or why it made sense at the time, but we did that. So the two guys went to bed. Then I, being even more intelligent, thought it'd be a great idea to go wake the trainer up and tell him how funny this was at 3 in the morning that we put all the furniture on top of his car. So I go to bed thinking this is hilarious. We got to get up in the morning. Training camp's going to start. And we had this guy, this Father Bauer, really well-respected man. He was actually a father, a priest, and he ran Hockey Canada. So he was he kept everything, very respectful. This was Canada. It was hockey. A little bit. So he comes walking over to me in the morning, and I'm thinking he's going to give me a big hug and welcome me to the team. And he hands me a plane ticket, sends me home.
Oh, you're kidding me.
Sends me home. So here I'm one of 35 or 40 guys trying out for the Canadian Olympic team. It's a huge honor in Canada. My family, I left college in my senior year and telling all the guys I won't be back. I'm going to play in the Olympics. So now I've got to crawl back home for my family and friends, and not just say that I haven't made the team, but tell them why I didn't make the team. And I'll never forget, the feeling was what have I done? I want all my dreams of playing in the NHL, and here I've had this great opportunity and I've screwed it up. And it was, I don't even know if I thought about it too much, but it's not interesting for me to look back at that story, the stuff we're talking about, and how I reacted when I got back there. It's I don't know how I did it. I mean, it sounds like the same with you. I don't know where it came from with you or where it came from for me. I just had that mentality that, okay, now I've screwed up. I need to fix this. But I wasn't going to fix it overnight. I had just had to get to work and, first practice, first game, and go from there. And we ended up being the number 1 ranked team in the country and went to the national championship and, signed my first pro contract with the Rangers. So I took that bad situation, my stupid situation that I did, and made something from it. But it's the same as you. I don't know where that, I guess I was fortunate the way I grew up, where that came from, but it was, looking back at it, was a great experience for me. And it's something bad that I did end up being something great.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of that comes from, at least for me, just upbringing, the examples of both my parents. My dad was always like that, always about hard work, always working, always just, showing up and being there and just setting the example, Right.
So let's say somebody doesn't have that, guy, didn't grow up in that environment. So I'm the same way. I grew up with farmers, had to get up every day milking the cows and everything. So somebody doesn't have that, and now they want to go be a Navy SEAL, or they want to play in the National Hockey. They get some goal or some dream, and they just have to have that mentality that, okay, there's going to be bumps along the road, things are going to go wrong. I just need to keep grinding and go, next step, like that. How do you think? You think you can train yourself
Yeah, yeah, I do. Yeah, I think a lot of guys come into buds who don't have that upbringing at all, and are kind of wild men, and uh, just kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Impulsive kind
Right.
of guys. And then through training, they just kind of figured out, okay, I've got to just focus one thing at a time. And I think it might take a little while. It takes longer for some than others. And it might be a struggle at first for them to do that. But yeah, I think you can.
Right.
It's not easy.
Right. See, I agree with you. I think it's one of those things that it sounds kind of simple almost, but it's just like you're going to tell yourself, okay, I've got a goal here, and I'm just going to start. Like, I'm going to get up early in the morning, and I'm going to make my bed perfect, and I'm going to, be disciplined with my life. I find for me, those kinds of things kind of guide me in my life now, where there's some people almost think that, like, make your bed, like what's the big deal about it? But to me, it's that first thing you do. We talked about this, that Navy SEAL Admiral, that William McRaven made that great speech, and that's where I saw it, and I put that into practice now, and it really does make a difference in my life. So I get up and I make that bed perfect, and I walking out of the room, and it gets me fired up. I turn back and I look at the bed made perfect, and I go, I did that. So it's the first thing I do today, it's done right. And then that goes the same thing when I'm in the gym working out. I don't take, if I say I'm going to do 5 sets of 12, I don't do 4 sets of 12 and 1 set of 11. I get the 5 sets of 12. Like, it's a big deal to me now to follow that goal. And I think, to your point, that's how you can train yourself, by just constantly doing that, right? Every challenge you have in your life, you set that goal and don't quit till you accomplish it, right?
Definitely. And I think, you could be a train wreck, have a train wreck life. And once you start doing the little things right, I think you can just build on that.
Right.
And I think that's a perfect example, making your bed. It's the first thing you do in the morning, and when you get back home at night, it's nice to have a made bed.
Right. Did you find yourself, so we've talked, so everybody knows, Pat, fantastic careers in Navy SEAL. When he got out of it, had a hard time dealing with the fact he wasn't on the teams anymore, and ended up having some alcohol problems, and now has dealt with those issues. Is that something that kind of helped you too, to kind of look back at that, and when you're going through, dealing with the alcohol, saying, okay, I know how to get out of this. I've done this before. Not necessarily alcohol. I've accomplished other tasks.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's important to look back on that discipline and use that, getting to meet AA meetings and staying on top of, just that recovery program, and not, you hear these guys in AA talk about how, they were sober for 10 years and then kind of stopped going to meetings and kind of thought they had it. And then next thing you know, they're right down the rabbit hole again.
Right.
So it's like, knowing that and not allowing that to happen is, just staying disciplined, staying busy,
Right.
So,
and don't you think that's important too, though, to don't expect to be perfect? I think I try to tell people all the time, you're not perfect. There is no perfect person in the world. Pat Barr is not perfect. Tom Laidlaw is not perfect. We're going to make mistakes. So in your case, where you're fighting through the addiction and you slip up, and maybe you have you go backwards a step.
Yep.
That's not the end of the world, right? It's not to beat yourself up and say, okay, I made a mistake and now everything's screwed up. It's just, okay, get back up again and continue on in the path you're going, right?
You got to get back on that horse, totally. Yeah. And a lot of times, like, no matter what it is, if it's addiction or anything in life,
right.
You screw up. The worst thing you can do is just to get in your head and let that rule the day. You know what I mean? You've got to get back on that horse.
Yeah. And I can say, to me, it's I think, like, falling down and making a mistake is almost like gives you that fire now to come back even stronger, right? Like, come back with a vengeance. Like, if somebody's knocked you down, or if something has knocked you down, maybe somebody's going through cancer, or they've lost their job, or whatever it is. To me, it's like, when you get knocked down, just get back up again and be like, be like an animal. Like, so if somebody's knocked you down, physically knocked you down as a person, or knocked you down in business or your marriage or whatever it is, when you get back up, if you're that person that gets back up and you're even now more determined, the thing or the person that now has knocked you down is looking at you like, what do I have to do to stop it? Right?
Totally. And like the people you admire most. I mean, the people who do that.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, no one is perfect.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to screw up. Everybody's going to make mistakes, and life's going to throw curveballs at you.
Yeah, totally.
But those people who keep getting back up and keep trying and keep going for it,
Right.
those are the people you admire and respect the most.
And that is kind of like part of the as much as I think Navy SEALs are viewed as these elite guys and who are intelligent and driven and physically fit and all that kind of stuff. A large part of it is just like adapting. That you're like, when I hear you and others talk about the training even before a deployment, it's almost like training to failure, right? Like, okay, we got to get to the point here where it just everything screws up, and now what do we do now?
Yeah,
right? That's part of being a Navy SEAL.
To be honest with you, I think they made training when you're working up to go on deployment.
Yeah.
And this might sound crazy to some of you, but like, I think it was harder than combat.
Oh,
it really was. I mean, it was just, they pushed you to a point where it was like every possible scenario going wrong. And, it was tough. And so that way, when you got into country, you were just prepared.
Right. And do you feel like it gave you confidence? It's like it gave you a license to be confident, really, because you know that you had faced every scenario. There's nothing that was going to surprise you.
Totally.
Right? Just like you said, it was tougher. The training was tougher than being in country.
Yeah, and I didn't realize that before I went. Like I didn't know. I obviously never having been in combat before, and then showing up, I'm like, well, because sometimes, I mean, you'd be going through that training and it would be 4 a.m. and you'd be like, God, this is awful.
Yeah.
It's freezing. I'm exhausted. I'm sweating my head off. And then you got over there. And once you started seeing actual combat, it was like, oh, thank God they put us through that, because I know scenarios that are coming at me and I'm able to deal with it,
So, I mean, so the first time you got through it, all the training before the deployment, you're probably questioning, like, why are we doing all this, right? Why are we pushing to this level?
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was all self-imposed too. You know what I mean? Like, it was all like run by SEALs. So it was just like, why are we putting ourselves through this complete torture test? Like, some of it just seemed almost unnecessary,
right?
But it wasn't. I mean, it really came in handy when we went over there.
And obviously now, once you went back for your second deployment, you're going through training again. Now it made more sense, right? You say, okay, now
totally.
I'm doing this. And so that's just a lesson for everybody in life too, right? I mean, if you've got a job interview, or you're coming out of college, you're preparing to go to some job or whatever you're doing. So the more prepared you are, the better. Like, I mean, if you're going to walk in that job interview and you know everything about that guy that's interviewing you, or that woman that's interviewing you, you know everything about the company, now you're less nervous, right? Because now you feel like, well, I know all this. I know this company. I'm prepared here. There's nothing this guy can throw at me in this interview that I can't handle, right?
That's right. Yeah. No, I mean, you got to do your homework, know? It's super important. And like you said, you're less nervous going in.
Yeah. See, I agree. That's the big thing. You're confident then. So there's ever times like, that you had in any of your deployments. And I know everybody that Pat's got to be careful with some of the stuff he says, but any deployments where either you or your guys in your team had gotten yourselves in a spot where, hey, this is a tough go here. Like, how are we getting out of this?
Yeah, I think I told you this story already, but there was one day particularly for me where we were on a rooftop and the enemy was close, and we had like a little structure we were behind, but I mean, they had us dead to rights. And I'm talking like, rounds impacting inches from your head. And it was a bad situation. And my buddy ended up stepping up and really, I think, saving our ass. But there was, there were a number of times, I mean, being in, just pinned down with your face, buried in the dirt, just hearing those bullets crack overhead and trying to get air support in to hit the enemy. And they were close too. Right. So yeah, I mean, there were a number of times that happened, and somehow we only had one guy get a Purple Heart on that deployment. So yeah, we were really lucky. I can count a number of times where it was like it was pretty dire. And
do you actually think during those times that the thought process in your head was actually, okay, I just need to do the next task? Like I've heard that even guys use we were at a meeting one day, and this guy was talking in terms of a business meeting, but he related to being in battle where you've got an enemy in front of you, 3 meters in front of you, an enemy 30 meters in front of you, an enemy 300 meters in front of you. So obviously you can't worry about the 300-meter guy. You need to worry about the 3-meter guy right away, then the 30, then the 300. Does that kind of process go through your head?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, there's a priority list. You know what I mean? It's like, 1, get to cover.
Right.
2, figure out where they are. 3, return fire. 4, cover your buddy. Whatever it is, there's a checklist, and you've just got to whatever the next thing you got to do is like that. And by the way, like if you don't do that, if you're not prepared to really do that next task, other guys get hurt.
Right.
So there's no other option.
Right. And so the training you went through prepared you for that. So when those situations come up, it's like, okay, what's my next task? That's it. Don't over. Right.
It became subconscious almost. Like it was automatic. You automatically reacted, and it was that's why the training was great.
Right. See, to me, I think that's a fantastic thing in life being the same way too, right? If like it's almost like, and you said this, and I thought you said it fantastic a couple of podcasts ago where you talked about life not being fair.
Yeah.
Right. Like be prepared for the fact that life is not fair. Things are going to go wrong. You're not going to be perfect. Those are facts. That's just the facts of life. Be prepared for it. And the more, whatever you're in now, the more you've trained yourself, like mentally and physically, so the more confidence you feel about. So the minute something goes wrong, or the minute you're faced with some challenge, it's not, panic or anything like that. You don't go into like, oh, what am I going to do? It's just, okay, here's the job I need to do next, right? And that's whether it's a battle like that or in life, or relationships or business or anything.
Totally. It's exactly what you were talking about with getting kicked off the Canadian Olympic team.
Yeah.
Like it's like, okay, my next task is to rebuild my reputation and get back on top.
Yeah. It is interesting too, right? Because I remember we covered this, but I didn't even think about it too much. It was just like, okay, I've screwed up here. I can't go hide in some hole someplace. My dream is to be a National Hockey League player. I've just got to go fix it, but I'm not going to fix it overnight. I'm not going to make some, big announcement or, whatever it is. I've just got to get to work. And like you said, for me, it was the same way. I grew up on the farm there, the dairy farm, milking cows. And my father and grandfather was just every day, they're getting up and milking those cows 365 days a year. And I think that's what, and it seems you're the same way too. That's what really drives me now, even more so that I've looked back in my life and I've seen where I was, where I came from and how I got shaped into what I was. Like it's more important for me now to get up every day at 3:30 and make the bed perfect and go for the march at 4:00 and get to the gym and eat properly, because I see the rewards of it now. And I got to tell you, I played in the NHL for 11 years, but I think I'm in better shape now than I've ever been. I know what my diet and all that kinds of stuff. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. It's the same thing with you, right? So you didn't even have to think about it too much when you're going through buds and the training. Your father and your family just had that same mentality. That's what you were raised with.
Yeah, I think so. I owe it all to my upbringing.
Yeah.
Other guys different, like you said, you can train that. But yeah, totally. I think just seeing my dad and his work ethic and my mom too, that really helped me get through butts.
Right. And doing things. So that's a good lesson. So we're talking about how you get that mentality where you just look at the next task ahead of you. But I think that's also important now for people that are in a leadership position, whether it's parents, coaches, teachers, bosses at work, the impact they could have on a person's life by instilling that work ethic in them too, right? And not just telling them about it, but actually doing it themselves, right? So if you're a coach of a hockey team or a football team, whatever it is, and teaching those kids that, okay, just show up every day to practice on time. When I tell you to do a drill, do the drill properly, and show them why you're doing all that. So it's important in that leadership role to, the difference you can make in somebody else's life.
Yeah, totally. And I've got an example of a negative role model in that way. I had a football coach who was just a bad guy. He was a jerk and he hated me for some reason.
Somebody hated Pat Barr.
Somebody hated me, believe it or not.
No way.
And I was like this quiet high school kid. He was an ass to me. And just a quick bud story relating to him. in Hell Week, on your last night of Hell Week, you do what's called an around the world paddle.
Right.
And you literally paddle around the island of Coronado. Like, you paddle literally all night long.
Right.
And at that point, you're exhausted. You're freezing. You start to hallucinate. I was seeing sharks swimming around our boat that obviously weren't there. And there's a tradition that the class who graduated before you would swim you guys out food and stuff like that at a certain point. So I had a good buddy in the class in front of me. His name is Chris, and not the one that you know. Yep. And he knew my dad, and he was in contact with my dad throughout Hell Week, just kind of updating him, saying, and Chris said, "Hey, I'm going to swim this stuff out. Do you have a message you want me to relay to Pat?"
Yeah. And
this coach that I had, his name was Coach, we'll call him Coach L.
Yeah.
And my dad said, "Yeah, tell him Coach Longo sends his regards." He knew that was going to fire me up, and I swear I went from being half dead to just like,
that's funny,
fired up, angry. Yeah. So, but it's that's an example of a bad one. But luckily, I had enough good role models, including my parents in my life, that were just examples of leadership.
Yeah. Yeah, I noticed that with kids too. Like I'm very fortunate, especially here in New York, with all the Ranger stuff and everything. And I go to a lot of these little kids' clinics, and it's learn to skate programs. So these kids are getting out there at first, and they can't skate, and they look around, they see maybe other kids are skating better than them, so now they get nervous and they're thinking, well, I don't want to do it. And I am so lucky to say, I seriously, when I first started playing up in Canada, I was awful. I had to hold on to the boards. So I told the kids, I said, like, listen, I played in the NHL for 11 years, but when I started, I could not stand up on skates. It was so hot, like really, I didn't have it at all. But again, I had people around me that just, no problem, just get back out there and keep going, And I've seen that even with both my sons. They have that mentality where, if they weren't good at something, they just continued to work at it. And a lot of it was sports when they were kids. And it really wasn't me. It wasn't me like giving them some big lecture. I think the best thing I did was the same way my parents did with me, was just let me go figure it out. If I had a passion for something, make it available so that if I wanted it, I could go after it. But then let me figure out, okay, I keep working at it. I keep working at it, and I'll accomplish it. And now you've got that in the back of your head. Say, okay, I know I've done this before. So same stuff, right? So yeah, it's cool stuff. All right, guys. Well, I love this topic, and I think Pat and I, we've talked about this before, how we've had different paths in life, but a lot of similarities in how we got there and everything too. So just a reminder too, we've got our ruck coming up soon. So we're going to Pat and I and our trainer Robbie Sherwood, the mystery man. He hasn't showed his face yet on the podcast, but we're going to do another one coming up here soon. So that's coming up here. Again, we're going to start here probably, I guess, about another week with our online program. So the three of us will be guiding you through learning some things with training the mind and the body. And then we'll have our ruck here. It's going to be somewhere, we haven't picked a location here, but we're all in the tri-state area, either Connecticut or New York. So and Pat and I have got the competition going on here to see who can carry the big competition going on. So,
yeah.
All right, so we'll have some more announcements of that. We'll have some more podcasts with the three of us on, but that's coming up. Again, that'll start online. We'll do some training for 3 weeks, and then we'll have an actual ruck somewhere in the area here. And again, we're going to make it, it's going to be competitive for everybody, but it's going to be fair for everybody. It's not going to be intimidating. If somebody's not in as good a shape, they won't be carrying as much weight around in their rucksack. If somebody's in really good shape, obviously we'll challenge them more, and they'll have more weight carrying around. So it'll be fun, and we'll all be working as a team together and getting it done. So, all right, guys, great to have you on again, Pat, here, and we'll see you guys next week.
All right, Tom. See ya.